Hey guys, my name is Amy Jane and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my story and how I went from hating religion to becoming a Christian at 21. So I'm going to do my best to be honest and detailed and at the same time keep it as short as I can. So let's get started. As a child, I went to church consistently on Sunday until my parents divorced when I was about 6. And my father appeared to be a strong Christian and was pretty serious about church attendance, but over the years he made some pretty big mistakes and ended up serving 13 years in prison. And this was when my dislike for Christianity began. After everything happened with my dad, I kind of viewed Christians as people who would justify wrongful actions by going to church and being essentially washed clean of their sins to repeat without any true change. My bitterness towards religion definitely grew over the years. I was thoroughly annoyed every time I heard a Christian song on the radio or a guy preaching on TV. I just hated all of that stuff. And the most obnoxious phrase that I heard at the time was, "Jesus saves." And I would think, saves us from what? I'm a good person, I haven't murdered anyone or cheated, and I try to do my best to treat people well, so I don't really need saving. And while religion was a turn-off, I still believed in something bigger than myself, I guess a version of my own God. And to me, God was a distant being that was there for me when I was praying to get out of a jam. So if I wasn't praying at the top of a roller coaster to survive or pleading for a negative pregnancy test, I didn't ever really think about God. And I figured he was okay with that, and I just had to make sure to live as best that I could. Throughout middle school and high school, my mom and I would occasionally go to church or on Christmas or Easter, but it never really meant anything deep for me. Fast forward to college, my freshman year in the dorms, and this is where I met Nick, the floor RA. And Nick was dating a girl named Lauren, his now hot wife, and when I saw them together, it made me sick in the best way possible. They really intrigued me. I could tell that they were different and had something amazing that I didn't have in my own relationships, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And one night, Lauren invited us over for a girls' night and a chance to escape the dorm rooms. And as she gave us a tour of her place, she said that they were looking for a roommate. And my original plan was to move in with my felon ex-boyfriend, but we had just recently broken up, so I jumped at the chance to live with Lauren. And while living with Lauren, she told me that she led a Bible study and asked if I wanted to join. And I thought, studying? No thanks. And studying the Bible of all things, double no thanks. I didn't really want to, but at the same time, I did want to hang out with Lauren more. So I ended up agreeing and I joined. And I remember one time when we were reading some scripture, it was then that I realized that everyone in the study actually believed that the Bible was valid history. And I was baffled because to me it was just an old book that was kind of hard to understand, that gave us a bunch of rules to live by and offered examples of how to be a better person. But I never saw it as world history. Well, I stayed in the study. I tried not to look stupid when I read verses out loud, but I still didn't believe that the Bible was valid. My junior year, I became really close with my now best friend, Katie, and we were on Thanksgiving break 2011, I believe, and traveled to her hometown. And I glanced over at her nightstand in her room and saw books about Jesus, and so I asked her about them. And she boldly told me what she believed. She said, that people go to heaven not by doing good works or solely by being good people, but only by trusting and believing in Jesus. And I thought, oh, here we go again. Who has brainwashed my friend into believing this nonsense? I shot back a bunch of questions that I thought would stump her, but she stayed calm and stood by this Jesus guy. We stayed up talking, me mostly bickering, for a couple hours late into the night. Well, the next morning, our conversation was still on my mind, and at this point I had to figure it out. Maybe it was true, most likely not, but I wanted to know. And she offered me 2 books, Case for Faith and Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. She said I could take them home and read them if I wanted to, and I essentially took them out of spite. If I'm being honest, I didn't want Christianity to be true. It meant that I'd been fooled all these years, that I might need to change, and that hell is indeed real. And so it was pretty scary to me. Well, I read both of the books in the same day and found myself in limbo. The author used to be a hardcore atheist, and he took time off of work to prove scientifically that Christianity was untrue. So he traveled the world, he met with top scientists to verify his theory of a non-existent God, and came back a Christian. Well, after I read the books, I instantly went into panic mode. I'd always checked the Christian box, I'd listed it on my Facebook, but did I actually believe in him? And I also had a lot of other questions and doubts, but for some reason I couldn't shake the feeling that there was truth to all of it. Katie was in a Bible study and she asked if I wanted to join so that some of my questions could be answered. And again, I didn't really want to, but Lauren had warmed me up the previous year, so I joined. And this time I was going to take it seriously. I had question after question, and I wouldn't fully put any faith into Christianity if I didn't have all the answers. And eventually, Navigators, the on-campus ministry at CSU, was going on a mission trip, and everyone wanted me to go. And I thought, a mission trip? Isn't that for Mormons who wear nice suits and ride bikes door to door? You know, I don't even know what I believe, and you want me to go share God with others? I don't know about that. As the trip got closer, Katie told me that she was going and I had nothing better to do over break, which was true. So I signed up and paid the day before we left. Now, it was life-changing to say the least, but spoiler alert, I did not come back a strong Christian. I did, however, meet amazing people that shattered my stereotype of a typical Christian. These people were young college kids, they were fun, they were non-judgmental, and people that I actually really wanted to hang around. While I was having fun on the trip, I also cried every single day. No exaggeration, every day. And I cried because my world would be turned upside down if I committed to Jesus. And I even prayed to God, letting him know how upset I would be if I did become a Christian, because this is going to change everything for me. Well, after the trip, I spent a lot of time sifting through information and seeking for the truth, whether I wanted to hear it or not. And as I researched my questions, I realized that I didn't really know what true Christianity was after all this time. It wasn't about fear or rules or judging others. It was about Jesus, whoever that was. And I realized that what I had learned from Christianity, or about Christianity, was more from society and media and past experiences, but never from the actual source itself, the Bible. So while I started reading, I found that the Bible was talking about this God who has immense love for everyone. It says that he sent his son Jesus to rekindle a relationship with us, commands followers to even love their enemies, and it hints at this mysterious place of heaven where every tear will be wiped away and pain will be no more. And this was a very different message in comparison to the old man on campus yelling at everyone with a sign reading, "You're all going to hell." At this point, the Bible was completely foreign, and I decided to approach this like a research paper at school. So I started from square one. Was there really a God? I'm a scientific thinker, and to my surprise, cosmology as well as anthropology and more did point to a creator. And I questioned, how did the world begin? And in short, I found that something can't be made from nothing. And in science, we know that we can either create or destroy matter as humans. And scientists argue that the world had a beginning, meaning that it didn't always exist. The Big Bang Theory states that an entire universe popped into existence from a black hole, and I readily accepted this after hearing this theory in school. But after thinking about this a little bit longer, logically I had a harder time believing a precise and complex universe came into existence from nothing, especially when scientists couldn't explain how or why. And plus, as I looked around, I saw the beauty and the design of nature and animals and the human body, and I started to see a designer behind all of it. But next was the Bible. Was it valid? Could it be trusted? Did it contradict itself? And again, my search supported Christianity. There were prophecies that were written thousands of years ago that had come true and are still currently coming true. Archaeology supported the events that were written about. There were many different authors from around the world written in many different languages that all wrote consistently about the events and life of Jesus. So at this point I was kind of thinking, okay, well maybe it's not just some old book after all. Throughout my search, I did find something very intriguing. A God that loves unconditionally even when I mess up. I learned that the Jesus of the Bible isn't the man smiling next to rainbows like I was taught in Sunday school. The real Jesus of the Bible was bold and confronts injustice. He takes risks by swimming against the cultural current in order to restore God's plan. He builds relationships and shows mercy to those viewed as unworthy. And he's forgiving of his enemies and even cried out, "Father, forgive them," as they murdered him. And I just wondered to myself, who would do such a thing? So I don't remember the day or time, but something changed. And yes, I became one of those people, the kind that I used to avoid at all costs, claiming that God was now a part of my life. And don't be fooled, I still had questions and doubts, but I was actively seeking answers to find truth. And I emailed multiple pastors and different Christians about questions that I had. Sometimes I got answers that I felt good about, and sometimes not. As I look back, I realized that it was the focus on Christ that made Nick and Lauren's relationship unique and powerful. And likewise, it was the lack of Christ in my life that left me wandering to the next best thing. Hoping for popularity or a nice car or attention from the next good-looking guy. Those things always left me tired and always wanting more. And little did I realize that I would never be satisfied even if I had obtained all of those things. Don't get me wrong, I am definitely not saying that Christians have God's favor and therefore live happy, easy lives. That's just not true. Christian or non-Christian, we all live in this beautiful yet fallen world and will face struggles from time to time. But to know and be able to lean on the everlasting God who brings joy and healing, that does give me peace and hope in this chaotic world. He changed the way that I view people and money and standards for a husband. He changed everything for the better. And side note, God even redeemed and restored my broken relationship with my father, which I will talk about in a future video on forgiveness. Now, years later, I can say that a relationship with Jesus is a process and takes time. I definitely did not become a Christian overnight, and thankfully God doesn't ask that of us. In fact, the Bible itself tells us to examine everything carefully, to use our minds, not just our hearts, and to come to the knowledge of the truth. So I'm still developing my faith, and I will continue to do so until He calls me home. Something that really affected the way that I viewed God was understanding that religion says, out of fear, do good things, and then God will love you. But Jesus says, I love you, therefore come follow me. And that's a big difference. God doesn't just want things from us, He just wants us. Don't worry, I am landing this plane. If you have a similar story or can relate in some way, I'd love to leave you with this. Don't just live to die. And if you haven't already, then ask the question, what is the purpose of this life? What am I here for? How did I get here? And if you have questions about the Bible like I did, don't be afraid to ask someone. And if you're praying for someone to know the Lord, then be encouraged that God can change the hardest of hearts. I am as stubborn as they come, and He even changed mine. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I really appreciate it, and I hope that it serves as encouragement. I've listed a couple book recommendations in the description box that really helped me when I was curious about faith and just getting started. Any scripture that I mentioned will also be listed in the description box below. If you enjoyed this type of content, let me know by liking this video and subscribing. Please feel free to leave me a comment with any questions that you may have. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you next time.